Well, we just finished this amazing second part of this journey of just becoming love. And I think that the icing of the cake is going to be this interview with my dear friend David Wagner. And I do not know one single person on this planet that can model of love, to embodying love, to become love. And he is living and he's loving from that very place. So let's watch this together. Hey, I am here with my dear friend David Wagner, and we are just having a conversation about a convergence lifestyle where love, power, and wisdom is becoming one. And as part of our vision and our dream is for every son and daughter to be able to know how loved they are, and from being rooted and grounded in love, to be able to express both the power and the wisdom of Jesus. And David Wagner, it is such an honor to be called your friend, but also to know that I know that you're living this lifestyle. And I would love for some of the people and some of our friends that are part of this convergent family, for them also to be able to, for you just to add value to them, because you're carrying an intimacy with God, and I've seen that walk with God that makes me jealous. Just being around you, I'm getting hungry for more. So if you were to just to describe, what does it mean for you to be rooted and grounded in love? What does that mean as a lifestyle for you?
Well, Leif, thanks for having me, and it's so good to be with you on this as you begin to launch this new thing that's going to really impact the nations of the earth. And for me, my first real encounter with the Lord 20 years ago, the Lord raised me up after 2.5 days, and that Jesus revealed himself to me, and it was the first time ever in my life that I felt love. And I just said, God, if you can love me when I can't love myself, I'll serve you and follow you the rest of the days of my life. So I think that was laid in the foundation. Once I encountered who he was as love, not just as an idea, not just as a thought or religious icon, but as love, it changed my life. And I tell people that day I died crazy, but I woke up in my sound mind.
Sure.
And what I love about the Lord is he doesn't focus on what's wrong. He focuses on what's missing. Go through diagnosis of what was wrong with me. The thing that was missing from me is love.
Wow.
When he planted that deep up inside of me, all of a sudden, a man that was filled with so much hate for people around me, hate for myself, hate for everything, and all of a sudden this epiphany or this awakening of love on the inside of me transformed me. And I think that's been the core foundation, not only of my ministry, but of life. And shortly after I got saved and came across 1 Corinthians 14, pursue love and desire spiritual gifts. When I just began to pursue love, I realized you can't miss. And so every day I just pursue him.
But his life, you see there's issues and struggles, but still I've watched you. When you're coming across, it comes from this place of love, and what it does is changes the environment. So just describe even that lifestyle with a gift of a prophet. How do you go about and do that from a place of love? Because now power is being demonstrated and transformation is taking place. How do you do that?
Yeah, for me, a few years ago, the Lord said, I'm going to give you the lens of love. When you look at people, I want you to see them through the lens of love. And I don't want you just to hear their words, but I want you to hear their heart behind words. And out of that, I'm going to give you my heart. And it came out of this moment where I was dealing with a young man, and he was just repetitively just kept falling into these cycles of destruction. He was breaking his mom's heart, And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to go there and I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. I'm going to tell him what I think. And as I was walking towards him, the Lord said, do you want to give him a piece of your mind, or would you rather give him a piece of my heart? Which won't change it, but my heart will. And it opened my eyes that the Lord never speaks to our behavior. He always speaks to our identity. Encounter people that are filled with fear. It's not who they are. So I began to speak identity into them, that they are the loved of God, that God loved them and gave himself for him. And I watched the love of God open up. I realized something, that people can argue with my theology, they can argue with my preaching, but argue with love. watch over and over again. If you walk things out with people, I think what happens often, in the church world and with a lot of us, that we go right for the kill or right for the jugular vein, in the sense that we want to do it kind of quick and preach the gospel and then go right in and bring them to salvation. But I found that really you have to learn how to love people to life. That Jesus always met people where they were, and he loved them first and one second. And I think if we could actually learn how to love the people around us, much like what you're doing in some of the hardest, darkest places of the earth, love is releasing a light that penetrates the heart, that really just shifts things around. I watch love take my enemies and make them my friends. I watch love take I was just with some young men, 2 of them this weekend, that in my meetings, that have given their life to the Lord over the last 13 years. Both of them came out of the Latin King, one of the roughest gangs in the world, and they've all seen horrific things. They've done some horrific things, but the love of God came and melted their heart, and now where people were so afraid of are now these walking bubbles of love, I call them, really. Anytime the presence of God comes and the move with compassion and mercy, I think what happens is when you realize God loves you, it gives you permission to love you.
Wow.
And I think that, I can't give what I have unless I learn how to love me. I won't love you effectively. And so it's looking at people through the lens of love, seeing them from the Father's heart, that God sees something in us, God sees something in you, he sees something in me that we don't see in ourselves. And how did he look at it? He looked at us through the cross, which was the ultimate demonstration of love. It was that perfect love that cast out all fear, the perfect love that conquered sin, death, hell, and the grave. And so when you look at people through the finished work of the cross, realizing they may be a work in progress, but Jesus sees them as it's finished, that causes me, it compels me to look through the lens of love. But also taking time to hear people in their heart. Often what people are saying is not what they're meaning. The words coming out are just an expression of hurt or pain or different things they're going with. And if you can listen past that and hear the heart, which is really crying out for redemption and just to be loved. We all have that built-in desire in us to be loved and to be loved, because God's love and he's on the inside of us. And so when people tap into that, it changes lives. There's no greater weapon than love, no greater power than love, no miracle than love, and no greater tool in our tool belt than the love of God. And so every day I just received that fresh baptism of love falling all over me. And I watch it change my life and the lives of people around me.
There's so much of my heart, even for us doing this interview, as well as we're now creating just a platform where we have an opportunity to a high school teacher, that they are rooted and grounded in love, but they also are operating in fullness of power and wisdom, or if they are a nurse, whatever they are supposed to do in their life, we want to see the convergence of these 3 things becoming one. And that's so much of my heart, is that there's pretty much about 10 years that I focus on love and 10 years on power, and now it's been wisdom, and now we're recognizing those 3 things are coming together. And then I wanted to bring them into, or give access to some of the people that I see do this very well, that are living love very well, but are also operating in power and wisdom that comes from that in such a way. So, but my question for you is, when you're ministering or when you're living life, what motivates you? I mean, you are leaving your wife, leaving your children, you go to all kinds of parts of the world, some of the places where nobody wants to. But I mean, what drives you? What motivates you? And I just give you one example. I asked Randy Clark, I said, what keeps you going and going when things are so hard? And he says, because I don't know if there's another Heidi Baker or Leif Hetland or somebody else that can get an impartation. So that's why I take my hand one more time and one more time. So to a degree, he says, I'm motivated because I'm seeing the fruit, and I never know who's who's going to be the next one that is going to be transformed. So my question to you, my dear friend, what motivates you actually to do what you're doing and to actually leave your beautiful wife and your children and then going into all parts of the world and again facing some of the most impossible situations? What drives you and what motivates you?
Yeah, I started praying a prayer a few years ago. I was getting kind of weary. I didn't feel like getting on the next airplane. And the Lord said, why don't you ask me to show you in advance what's going to happen? And so I started praying this prayer, Lord, show me what's on the other side of my obedience. And obedience for me is not do's and don'ts. It's not this rigid list, but I obey him because I love him. It's really out of a place of intimacy. It's out of a place of adoration, and so not out of obligation.
Yeah.
Some people obey because they're obligated to. I obey because I'm so in love and I adore him. And he began to show me the miracles and began to show me cities in transformation and nations that will be changed. And sometimes for me, it's just as simple. I have to be in front of in a week or the hundreds or the dozens, but Lord, show me the one. And I watched this weekend as this young lady had just come out of, she was sitting on, I'll never forget, sitting on the second row of the church, 3 or 4 seats in, and the Lord just said during worship, I was looking around, and he just said, she's the one. And the whole message, the Lord just interrupted now. And I said, the Lord's taking you off the battleship and bringing you into daughtership. And I just started weeping and after the activities. And the Lord said, I need you to come away with me. You can't keep going at this pace and carry the weight of what I've called you to carry. And I need some time with you. And so I went to my room and I went to turn on my playlist, my worship playlist. And he said, don't turn anything on. Went to open my Bible. He said, don't open your Bible. I went to pray and he said, I just want you to sit. And for about an hour and a half, it was uncomfortable, but at the end of it, it sure was worth it. I just sat with the Lord for an hour and a half, and I realized he wasn't speaking in that time. He was just sitting with me in that time.
Wow.
And he said, son, I don't want you to do so you can be. I want you to be so you can do.
Wow.
And so it was this fresh baptism of the love of God. It wasn't about my prophecy. It was actually about me being a son, having intimacy with him, just sitting. I'm finding the older I get, my wife and I will go on dates, and for maybe the first 30 minutes we don't even say anything. We're just being together, and our hearts are speaking. They're connected, even in that. And so it's simply being in the presence of God. And I picture myself climbing up the lap of God. Realize that there is a dimension of his heart that he created just for me.
Whoa.
Place that in God that I feel in him, every part of me that he feels in me. And when I step into that, it's where I get filled up. It's where I hide and abide. And so I think there's a secret of abiding that maybe we've lost in the church. We've lost even as ministry, as we go from event to event. We don't take time to actually just be with the one who loves us. And and so I spend a lot of time. I try to take about an hour a day. I just lay with him. I used to say I lay before him, but now I just lay with him. And he's closer than my next breath. I can feel his arms around me. And instead of I worship. I think I may not sing the best, but I'm a worshiper at the core. It's this kind of this procession. I can't tell you that 3 hours a day of this and 5 hours a day of this. It's actually just letting him live through me, being possessed, being consumed by God on a daily basis. Another thing I do is, I caught this from my pastor. I watched my pastor was an amazing. I never knew him not to be praying in the Spirit. So even when he's speaking in English to me, I was watching something else taking place. When I home to be with the Lord, I asked the Lord if I could have that as an inheritance.
That's beautiful.
There's communion and communication with God. If you're not talking to your spouse, if you're not talking to the people you love, you'll never hear their heart. If you're not listening to them, you won't know what's going on. So I think often, even in our prayer life, we kind of hit, Lord, I need you to do this, and Lord, I thank you for this. And, but it's taking time to actually listen and let him speak back. And I'm finding that he loves to pursue me. There's a lot of talk about pursuing God. Believe in that. I want to pursue his presence, but I'm pursuing him.
Yeah.
You know, the presence is him. And when I pursue him and I allow him to possess me, man, it changes my life. I've tried to do a lot of things, and maybe we can relate. People watch and relate. You know, it's easy in ministry to almost become mechanical. And he's not after my mechanics. He's after me as a man. He's after me as his bride. And I find that it's just the most beautiful thing to be pursued by God. And built up in an amazing way. And again, it compels me not to just keep it to myself. You know, it's too good to be true. And except that it is the truth, that he loves us deeply like that. And so, just a few things that I do, and I would invite people, challenge them to let God pursue them, and to take that time just to be. If you're like me, an extrovert, if you're like me, that, you know, with all kinds of, you know, my past insecurities and stuff, when you're laying there for an hour in silence, it's uncomfortable because you feel like I should be doing something, and you have to deal with, you know, God's picking things out of you, pulling things out of you. But at the end of it, now I actually look forward to that. Look forward to time and try to start my day there if I can. And but it's probably become one of the most intimate moments in God, where it just transforms and changes my life and heart, refreshes and renews me.
Now, this is already, even while you are sharing, there are several things stirring up in my spirit of things you have in your special sauce that I'm already bringing into my special sauce, where I'm sensing just even an invitation, because sometimes I'm sensing that restlessness where you feel you just have to do something, and just you remind me about to just lean back and just to be. And as so much part of my heart has been, even I felt the Lord specifically asked us to make it easier and to make it available as a lifestyle. And of course now use the technology with a whole converge and have the convergent lifestyle that we want for everyone. My goal was, at least as a starting point, even if I can get 10 minutes a week with a video with people around the world, and then for them to be able to actually just be able to tap into of how this is possible, so that all over the world that we can start to hear story in all aspects of society, that the very lifestyle of Jesus becomes a very normal lifestyle, the supernatural becomes natural. And I just wanted to say, can you give me an example when the convergence of power, love, wisdom, when they come together, when you you do not even know, is this love or is this power or is this wisdom? But when those three are coming together, because in my own life I've seen it several times lately, I'm like, as soon as I looked at love, I saw wisdom, and then I'm looking at wisdom, then there is power, and then it's love. Of those three things, that it's just becoming who you are, instead of there's three separate categories of what we're trying to do. So do you have any example of the power, love, wisdom being converged just as a lifestyle?
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how connected those three things are. And I think the Lord really loves to surprise us. And every time we think we have it all figured out, he normally comes and shows us something we've never ever seen before. And you know, a couple of years ago, I was ministering to this young man. His name was Josh, and he actually just met us outside. It was cold. It was a winter night, and he came up to us kind of just irate. We were getting in the car, and he just came up to us. And we just started having a conversation, and he was, you know, a little bit irate. He was high on, I think he was on crack at the time. And the Lord said, don't argue with him, just love him. Don't argue with him, just love him. And he was a brilliant guy, even as high as he was on the influence. But he just kept, he was throwing out scriptures. He was throwing out all kinds of information. And then all of a sudden, love came crashing in, and he said, I could, for me, you know, I think everything begins with love. When you pursue love, you won't miss.
Yeah.
I think if you want to be 100% accurate in prophecy, word knowledge, word wisdom, if you want to be 100% accurate in love, and you do it with my whole motivation being to love people, to let them encounter that love, will ever miss. Like, I think that there's coming a day. It's my heart's desire now. I live for those moments to walk. Just love come crashing in a driveway at 2 in the morning. Watch that love come in. And I don't know, you and I both, we go to conferences, we speak at conferences. I love what God's doing in the earth, but I wonder what would happen if we would devote a whole week to just pursuing the love of God. No beginning time, no end time. Just let love flow from the beginning. And I think it would transform ministries and transform cities and I'm pursuing that. I don't even know fully what it looks like, but I've seen glimpses of it. Villages in Mozambique. I've seen glimpses of it in Uganda. I've seen glimpses of it in Cambodia. I've seen glimpses of it in the inner city of Atlanta and Chicago and other places. And it just compels me, because I know when that love comes, man, that there's going to be so much power that transforms people's lives, sets people free, heals them, and then the wisdom of God that comes. The more I fall in love with Him, the more I fear Him. Yeah. Not because I'm afraid of Him, but because there's so much God coming that this flesh can't contain it. And if the fear of the Lord is really the beginning of wisdom, I think that it just really just all runs and ties together. I hope that I'm making sense, but man, I feel not just why we're talking. And I think we're onto something. I think there is this convergence of being in the right place at the right time with the right that place, that the enemy fears it enough. That I believe out of the ashes, out of that horrific event, God wants to come in with love and to see the love of God break through, set the captives free. I believe that's what He's doing in Cambodia. Some of the amazing stories we were talking about earlier, and other parts of the world. It's the only answer that the world needs. It would stop all the rhetoric. It would stop all the stuff. It would just the love of God. Really encounter it. It changes your life forever. I know what it's like to live without it, and it's torn. I know what it's like to live with it, and it is every day. I know a lot of people, they're zealous. They have a lot of zeal, and they're pursuing ministry. I would just say, stop. Don't pursue ministry. Pursue love, and ministry follows. Come on. Don't pursue a miracle. Pursue love, and miracles follow. Don't pursue healing. Pursue love, and healing follows. Don't pursue prophecy. Pursue love. I'm trying to and I hope that I'm demonstrating it more than I'm teaching it. Our good friend, yours and mine, Paul Manwaring, says it like this: the world is starving for a demonstration. We've just been giving them an explanation. Yeah. I don't love him to life. I want to find the guy that everybody says is crazy and untouchable, and I want to wrap my arms around them and let them feel the love of God for the first time. The same way I know it's true, because I know what it did for me. I was dead, but love came crashing in. I was tormented, and love came crashing in. Sure. Crazy, and love came crashing in. I was tormented, addicted, and love came crashing in. And you can't learn that. You can only encounter that and experience that. And out of that, you can learn to live like that. But I just feel, just even on this, as we're just sharing today, just even the beauty of technology. Sometimes I wonder all of this technology, but I think you're onto something with, in Cambodia and Australia and around the world. It's tangible. And I want to live this tangible up that triggers the power of God and wisdom of God that transforms nations and societies, and I'm pursuing it with all that I am, with all that I have, and I want to live in that. I want to see that come throughout the church and throughout the nations of the earth, and so I don't mean to ramble on, but
you're my covenant brother. Can you do me a great favor? Can you pray just a blessing over me, over all of us? One of the things that I do want is to steward everything we are talking together with you and a lot of our friends, but just to release a blessing in that place. The power and the wisdom is just going to flow out of people's life in a way they've never seen it before.
Amen. Well, Father, I just thank you that you are love, and that Lord, love came down and rescued each of us. Love came down, and Lord, set us free. And so, Lord, I thank you for my friend Leif. Lord, he is in love would come, refresh him, renew him. That Lord, he would carry an unprecedented and unlimited supply of that love that would trigger an unlimited supply of your power, that would release the wisdom of God, the manifold wisdom of God talked about in Ephesians. And I don't fully know the meaning of it, Leif, but I feel the manifold wisdom of God, the manifold love of God, the manifold power of God is coming upon you. And I feel like that this is a season of up and away, where the Lord is just lifting you up. He's causing you to get caught up in Him, caught up in who He is. And those people, just all of my friends, all of my brothers and sisters watching around the world today, I just release, God, that Lord, you would come, and that, Lord, through this broadcast, through this thing, that God, you would come and you would let them feel what we're feeling as we're talking and sharing together. That, Lord, that they would encounter love, Lord. I know there's people watching today. And Lord, I ask that, Lord, love would come in. I'm speaking right now prophetically to a young man named Daniel. Daniel, I feel like you're in your mid-30s. You've got a call of God on your life, and you kind of had one didn't understand you because of your prophetic gift, and people didn't understand you because of your zeal. And I feel like that even today you're watching me, and there's a bottle next to you, and I feel like you have 3 or 4. There's a part of you that is saying, God, I don't know if I'm ever going to get this. And I'm telling you right now, there's freedom coming to you. There's healing coming to you. And the callings and giftings of God are without repentance, Daniel. And I'm just telling you right now, I even feel like that Daniel, you're in Australia watching this. And Daniel, I believe that Daniel is your full name. And sometimes people just call you Danny or Dan or Daniel. But I just believe the Lord is calling you by your full name.